everyone. It's 6 o'clock. It's time for the Board of Directors meeting for the Clear Creek Community Services District. This is the December meeting. We're meeting 1 week early this month because it's December, and you know how things are in December. It is now 6 o'clock, time to call to order. And with that, I will ask our general manager to call the meeting. We have the roll call down here. So let's first of all do the Pledge of Allegiance. We move on to number 2, the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like to ask Scott McVeigh to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we'll do the roll call.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will just say, let the record show that Director Lincoln, McVeigh, and Vice are here, and Chair Bust is here. Absent is Vice Chair Jones.
Okay. And we also have in attendance this evening our General Manager, and at this time.
Well, with that, also, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I just wanted to mention that something that you don't see on our normal agenda. Well, real quick, our administrative assistant gave notice and left, so that's why we don't have anybody else here. And my bookkeeper, the new bookkeeper, was going to be here, but she's been sick the last 2 days. But item 3A is the oath of office for our new directors.
Yes.
So just so the public knows, there was an election held on November 8th. We did receive from the Shasta County Clerk the final results of the election. It's actually, I included it in sort of my report just so that it's in the packet. And just the way these things work, the directors to community services districts and special districts take office after the certification of the vote by the county, and they take office that first Friday of December after the certification. And so your 2 new members have already taken an official oath of office, but looking back on the history of the district, it appears it's been a little while since we've had newly elected members to the board in a competitive race. So first, I want to thank the members of the community that make sure they exercise their right to vote, which is great. And in this case, electing 2 of our members. And so we have a chair to administer the oath of office in a manner here so that it can be seen by the community in the district in which they got elected, not down in the county. So if you don't mind, it would be great if you could do it out front.
Terry and Beverly, if you come down below here.
This also, we want to give it an opportunity for a photo op too.
Raise your right hand. Thank you. And repeat after me. I,
Terry Lincoln,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I need to turn.
I just wanted to yell at everybody that voted for me.
And just thank everybody, we're here, we'll work diligently. You should have my contact number and Terry's also. No problems in contacting us.
No.
All right. So now we come to the fourth item on the agenda, the open time public comment period. Pursuant to Government Code S54950, persons wishing to address the Board of Directors on matters not listed on the agenda should notify the Secretary prior to the start of the meeting. To speak at this time and for any item listed on the agenda, raise your hand when recognized by the chair. Proceed to the podium to address the board. Is there anyone that has signed up or anyone would like to speak? Yes, sir. Would you
Yes, sir.
come to the podium?
Sure. Hi, my name is Dave Bartle, and I am in charge of the roadside cleanup for our Happy Valley Pride Day. I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to speak today. Our roadside cleanup will be in February 11th. I'll be putting flyers out. We'll get notices in through the water board bulletin, and also, I'll be putting flyers up on in the stores, at the bulletin boards. I'll use the Friends of Happy Valley Facebook page also. I've been working with Steve Westerby. I know some of you on the foundation, you know that he's in charge of the Happy Valley Foundation. He's worked with the safety company down there on East Side Road, and they donated some vests for us. And they've also donated 2 signs we're going to be able to put up at the ends of Happy Valley Road that says Pride Day Cleanup. So we start to give the people that are driving around a little awareness of what we're doing, and also for safety, because we're picking up on the roadside. It's safety. So we had a really successful October cleanup. Had over 20 people. I don't know if anybody drove by, saw that we had a lot of trash. Kudos to Chris Kellstrom, who came out, and I have to say, between him and the Garmin boys, they picked up the most. So he wasn't just a talker, he's a doer, which I commend him for that.
When's the first one in next year?
The first one will be February 11th. I have some flyers
Okay.
here if anybody wants one.
Missed that.
But there's going to be plenty of notices out there to remind everybody. If you can't come and do the pickup, just pick up in front of your house. I mean, there's always something somewhere we can pick up.
Easy.
So there's another gentleman, you might have seen him if you live over on Hopper. Sometimes you'll see him on Canyon Road. His name's John Griffith, and he's been just taking it upon himself to pick up trash. So you might see him out there once in a while, and he's just picking it up just because he's tired of seeing trash on the road. So we can all do that. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, David.
Mr. Chairman,
Big part?
can we ask that our general manager put a notice about that into the newsletter?
I think it has.
Yeah, he will. He's got the information. They do that every.
Make sure it's.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'd like to do. I'd like to come talk to you, Mr. Kelly, about putting a little blurb, maybe not every month, but just a little thing, the Pride Day trash talk, just little things like we can put the numbers, household waste where we can bring those, just little things to remind people that, Pride Day doesn't have to be just 3 times a year.
Maybe even on the website.
And we can put it on the website too. Well, I think we have some of the cleanup numbers and some of this information, but yeah, just trying to create that awareness. So,
Yeah, we've done that in the past and we'll continue to do
so
that.
hopefully just kind of keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
And Dave, if you don't mind, you could actually put a stack of those in the back where we have extra agendas if people want. They can grab them on the way out.
Yeah, I have these here.
Yeah.
So where did you want to put them?
Just on that back chair,
Okay,
right
sure.
there where the rest of them are. And we'll make sure we have something in the insert.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, if not,
Before
then,
we do that, I just want to point out there are trees available on the table up here. Christmas cookies, some little chocolates,
Yeah.
help yourselves.
Please,
Then I know
otherwise I'm gonna eat them all.
It's not that easy, Scott. You just have to eat it yourself sometimes.
No thanks, I've been trying to keep pounds unhappy.
Yeah, we always love it, but then it's nice to get rid of it, right?
We'll be breaking for a closed session here pretty soon, so, and everybody will have an opportunity.
If we're bored.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, item number 5 is the consent agenda. It's an action item. The following items are expected to be routine. Any interested party may comment or request an item be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion. The consent agenda contains the minutes from board meeting 11/16/22 and the finance committee and personnel committee 8/23/21. Paid bills of 11/15/22 to 12/9/22. Payroll 11/25/22 to 12/9/22. And the activity reports, which have been on this consent agenda before, 1/22, 2/22, 3/22, 4/22, 5/22, and 6/22. So with that, first of all, is there any item that anyone from the board would care to pull from the agenda, from the consent agenda?
Bills paid.
Bills paid,
Activity reports.
activity reports, okay, we got the bills paid, and the activity report. And then, is anyone from the audience interested in seeing anything that was on the consent agenda to be brought up forward so we can have it for discussion?
I believe
Okay, if
General
not,
manager was about to say something.
Oh.
No?
Yeah, I will, but I
So
would
you
just
put
like
your
to,
hand up and-
oh,
yeah.
missed that. If that's the case, then we'll bring it back to the board, and let's talk about the bills paid. Beverly, you had a question
She
about
had
the bills
activity
paid.
reports, I had the bills paid.
Oh, you had the bills.
Right, and if you refer to this page right here, I believe that Director Fickus had submitted some questions about bills paid.
This
These
is
are the responses from our general manager.
So, yeah, so Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I just, I did get some questions from our director, and I gave them a reply and decided that one of my ways of doing things is to make sure that they're all, everybody knows what I'm replying to everybody. So that's why you have a copy of that, and we'll make sure it's actually, it's okay to also put it in the minutes. You know, one of the questions was related to the transaction detail on the Aqua JPIA. You might recall last month, we had, I believe it was about a $16,000 payment. That was for the district's membership in the Association of California Water Agencies / Joint Powers and Service Agency, which is what Aqua JPIA stands for. That's an annual membership. It had been kind of late, and we had to make it all at one payment. So the same thing with this. This is actually our annual insurance. So they cover property, casualty, liability, our trucks and vehicles. We do also have a cybersecurity liability section in there, and hopefully we will do better on that in the future. There was a question about the dump truck payment. Basically, there's two payments in here, and it's just really staffing and timing and when the bills got processed. So one was a little late and one was current. There was a request to know what NTU Technologies is, and that's for our treatment plant chemical supplier. There was a question about, near the bottom, UNUM life insurance. So one of the compensation elements for employees is the district does have a life insurance policy on employees after they've been here for 30 days. And so that's the monthly payment. But I do want to make sure that once my bookkeeper gets back from being sick, that since we had so much turnover, that we make sure we have the right people on that list. And also there was a comment related to Aramark, that, you know, at some point we may want to look for or put that out to more of a bid. So if there aren't any more on the payments or the transaction detail, yes.
I do have a couple.
Uh-huh.
Let's go through and, the I-5 rentals, I'm curious as to what equipment we have to rent since we do have the backhoe on that. About a third of the way
Yeah,
down,
I see it.
it was $1,517.
I'm not sure, actually.
I think that was the back trailer.
Was that the back trailer that we
Street.
used? Okay.
Yeah. It was, the leak was between two big cement cylinders, so we couldn't get to it with the backhoe.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was a back trailer.
The back trailer rental.
Yeah.
Okay,
Back.
which is, yeah, a
Yeah,
back trailer.
VAC,
Right.
vacuum.
We took a look at the possibility through, Ritchie Brothers auction, they had one in Sacramento, they had a few vac trailers there. The one I was keeping an eye on went for $8,500. 2005, 3,700 plus hours on it, but. And we want to take a look at that sometime in the future and see if it's a viable thing to do. So how often will we need to use it? You know, does it make more sense if it's only gonna be a few times a year to rent versus an actual purchase with the maintenance, the insurance?
Well, through the chair, I would just say that, that is something, talking to our distribution supervisor and some of the rest. There are obvious times, like this instance, in which the vac, either a truck or trailer is pretty much the only way you can do the job.
Right.
There may be some others that we don't use it, that if we had one, it would make the job go quicker and more effective and efficient. So I've asked our distribution supervisor to say, look at the last 4 or 5 leaks, and would it be better if we had that? Based on what Director McVeigh was able to find through Ritchie Brothers, and I've used them years ago as an opportunity for some equipment, so we could actually look at that out into the future, getting used. I think in this instance, and taking a look at the pictures, it sure looked like a pretty good deal. On the other hand, there may have been some costs that would have been on there, and I think if we know something's available, I'd like to have boots on the dirt and eyes looking at it to make sure we know.
Absolutely.
So if there aren't, I could jump right into the
Do
activity.
you have any other?
Oh, yeah.
I've got one or two more. Out of curiosity, for my own understanding, Pacific Gas and Electric was 10,838. I'm curious, I know they have been slow billing for the well usage. Is this a catch-up on that? Because
Yes.
okay, I thought it might be, but I wanted to confirm that.
Yes,
I
when I was
missed that.
reviewing
Very
that
good.
bill.
I missed that.
When I was reviewing that
We've
bill.
done the JP, Pace Analytical, is that the water testing?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it might have been, but it seemed to be a little higher there, had been in months prior. And he already covered most of the others that I had questions on, so I'm done.
Okay, so we want to move on now to the activity reports. And I think Paul had some answers to questions that were written questions.
Right.
And
So,
if you would go over those, that'd be good.
All right, well, thank you. Through the chair, these came to the board in October. I had looked at them prior to that meeting. I didn't start until October 31st, so that's why we kind of kicked it last month for this month. So first, I just got to say that this is the old system, and you know, with our turnover, the combination of things, turnover in the district, there's not as many people here that know how to get access to this. Second of all, we already know that it has some challenging features to it that are may be inaccurate. One of the questions would be related to, first of all, I'm just going to focus on the June report. The other one is all cumulative, so there's one in there called penalty exceeding the water allocation. It appears that this is the attributed or charged penalty amount. And it is not the actual revenue received, in other words, for that particular penalty.
That throws off the net revenue number by a lot then potentially.
Absolutely.
And that would be why it went higher than it.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way of tracking how much was paid?
Yes, so that is our end of this year task by our bookkeeper.
Well, I understand that, there's some of these questions that are here, and the questions that I have and the rest of it, that some of those questions are gonna be answered with this, the way the QuickBooks is set up. Because it'll be the line items for everything, more explainable line items for everything, and, that'll be a good thing, so we won't have to sit here and ask questions about things anymore.
Well, it would be a little more transparent.
Yeah, it'll be much more transparent.
Right.
And also, any questions that we have will be much more readily able to find the answer.
Find the answer.
The other thing, too, I would just mention, because it's for a later item on our agenda, which is to move along on the FY21 audit. So, you know, in talking to Melissa, our bookkeeper, one of the things that she felt was like, yes, you know, I'm going to be looking and drilling down on this one, because for QuickBooks purposes, she needs the July 1, you know, she needs the amount, the actual received amount, so that there's a real reconciliation for the beginning of these accounts for July 1. So that's one reason why she's going to be doing that on this. But ultimately, most of this is great. We can hand it to our auditor, and they can do the review and the forensics work on it and give us the journal entries that are needed at the end of that. So the other one.
Can we stay on this one for a second?
Sure.
Thank you, Warren. The $451,149.55 for the total for the end of June for penalties, that just seems exceptionally high. So you're telling me that based upon this, is that we have actually billed customers $451,000?
Over the course of the year.
Over the course of the year.
So, Mr. Math Wizard, figure out how much that is per 2710 people.
That's easy.
Okay, yeah, but it may
Well,
be,
but understand, that is billed, not collected.
absolutely, billed not collected, but I think the average per household, if you go on 2710, that's high. That's
It's $166.48
per household if.
per household.
Okay, so that's not bad then, if that was the case.
That's your $50 or more. Now,
Right.
it doesn't include any late fees though, does it?
Well, I believe it does.
That just,
It
that,
probably does, but we don't know.
But we don't know.
Okay.
That's the problem with
So
this.
that's
Okay.
why it's actually high.
Right, it's artificially high.
high.
Correct, I understand.
Combination of that and also.
So it is a real revenue.
Preliminarily see
And that's gonna change the.
is that it also, you know, there are some that are very high, and obviously there's a
And they're not
majority of our
collected.
accounts that don't have any.
correct. It just, I was trying to do the math and I came up with a little bit of a different figure, so I knew Mr. Math Wizard over here would have the better answer for me, so. Okay, I just didn't like that amount, that just seems exceptionally high, regardless if we've collected it or not collected it, it just was high.
Which
Thank you.
means there's a certain amount that is still outstanding. Or there is a forgiveness process, so it'd be interesting to finally get some figures as to what was actually collected, what was forgiven, and what is outstanding.
Through the chair, the next one that I would just like to address, there was a question of why the merchant account is negative. So, again, you know, some of this could be just lack of some knowledge, but in doing a little bit of a review of this with our bookkeeper last week, one of the interesting elements of our old system is that it required that the the users put in a budget amount into the system for each of the accounts. And then as you accumulated postings, it's subtracted from that budget amount to give you the positive number within the account. In this case, it appears there was no budgeted amount put into it, so all of the items in it are -0, right? So that's why it comes up as negative, and that is true of the utilities balance for Cloverdale and Clear Creek. It also did not have a budget amount put to it. One of the questions that, immediately came to my mind when I looked at this back in October, before I was the general manager, was the bank maintenance fees of 42,000 and change.
Yeah.
So, we did actually get as printed out as much as we possibly could of all of things posted to this one. And again, I wasn't here, so I don't know why during that fiscal year, but there appears to be some postage expense posted to this account. There appears to be a couple of Office Depot expenses, maybe $100 total posted to it. There was actually, appears to be one of the RCAC loan payments was posted to it. Our bookkeeper, our on-call bookkeeper or contract bookkeeper, while we needed one, Alyssa, had a couple of her invoices posted to it by previous bookkeeping activities. Again, this isn't exact, and our auditor will be able to give us an exact fee, but it looks like there was over $33,000 of that 42,000 were from these extraneous postings. Some of them were lease payments for our folding machine. So more like in the $9,000 range would be bank fees, which by the way is still too high. And so once we get all of our signatures and everything done for our banking, I've already asked Tri-County's bank president or whoever to come and meet with me and talk about their services, because it to me is excessively high. Any other questions or comments on that one?
Other than, do you have an average of what the monthly cost is for that? Or you just have the yearly, the 9,000?
Yeah, I just have the yearly at this point. Again, that would be a little more forensic work to go in and do that.
Okay, thank you.
Another item was a question related to the debt service expense. As you will see in the audit, there's a list of all the different loans in which we're making payments on, and that's an accumulation of that. Again, we have not, one of the things the bookkeeper will be committed to doing is not only will this be given to our auditor, but also just to confirm that, because that needs to be rolled over into the books as what the starting, July 1 amount is. There's, I am not sure why the WIN Act payments are sometimes as low as a couple $100 and sometimes as high as $50,000. But that is what shows up in these reports, is it bounces around, and we will definitely work on making sure that if there's some reason for that, we'll let you know.
The WIN Act, we're supposed to be paying approximately $215,000 a year.
Right.
And we have, what, about another 2.5
2
years? 4 years? 3 years?
I think Bill.
About 3, yeah.
But I
That's
think.
what I thought. I thought we were in the 3 range.
3
years.
3 years,
Yeah.
okay.
I thought Bill had explained about the WIN Act, those little amounts.
Yeah.
And that's what my question was. I thought it was explained, but I would like it repeated again. Do you have the answer of why we have like $190 and $597?
It shouldn't have been $190 posted to the WIN Act. There was a small payment of $7,100 that made up a balance of, one of the payments of the $200,000 payments, because we used a credit. And so we were short by $7,000, and then we were making, and then after that, we got another credit. I believe that was January of this year, and so we made a $45,000 payment, and then every payment after that has been $50,000 payment.
And are those quarterly payments?
Yes.
We have, $190.73 one month, $597.52 one month.
That is probably being recorded incorrectly. That should be going to Win Act litigation, because it's probably, Downey brand.
Right,
Maybe look into that.
that sounds about right.
With probably our share of the split costs.
The, let's see, there was a question about the director's fees and where they've gone. I don't have an answer to that one at this point. That one we'll have to do a little more forensic look at as we go over. Convenience fees, I do know that those are the costs for, our like ACH, payments, or somebody calls in with a Visa.
That $3.95.
Yeah, that's kind of, this is kind of an ins and an outs. In other words, if we get it from our customers, and, but we do get charged the fee by the bank. So.
I think I was looking at it just with, SPLY figures, and so it was quite a bit higher, so whether, or not $2,000 higher, so not quite a bit. So I was just curious as to how it was being handled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, this one, it needs to be a little bit better handled, and QuickBooks has a better capability to match directly your, like, in this case, an expense and a revenue that it should match as it relates to that.
In reference to that, if I can ask, since we brought QuickBooks on in the summer, is there any time that we can expect activity reports for this fiscal year?
Well, it's my.
I know there's staffing issues, I understand.
Yeah, I think, but it's our goal to have those for January meeting, and maybe even potentially a January Finance Committee meeting around that same time, because there's two primary elements to that. One is not only do I need, as your manager, an activity report, but what it's worked in the past is you need an activity report, but you really need a budget, year-to-date, month, and comparison to your budget. Otherwise, you're not being able to manage it.
So we really can't do a mid-year budget review until those activity reports are.
So that's why, because we want to do the mid-year and budget review in January.
Yes, we do.
That's mid-year.
Yeah, I understand it'll take a little time to generate this. I thought maybe first or second week of February would be appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think maybe at the next meeting in January, you can give us a time frame to set that up.
Perfect. And one of the elements to do that is that the biggest challenge is to catch up all the revenue elements of things in QuickBooks. So QuickBooks have been doing a lot of the payables. There's a lot of that is caught up, but the revenue needs to be caught up.
Good.
There was a question about the office supplies at $14,000 and change through the June 2022. It appears that is probably about $7,000 over our budget that was adopted for that particular item. So we'll have to follow up to figure out, making sure we stay within our budget. But again,
Is that including all the printing? What is it? Is it brown printing we use? Because I've noticed there are invoices paid for them.
Yeah, and other things like that.
But if you have a budget, and you're gonna
Oh,
go
I
over your
know.
budget,
And we
you've gotta
probably
have
should
board
be looking
approval.
at having some of those items put into that budget category. So it's a bit more accurate.
Right, and again, there may be also a coding issue on this one. There may well be some things that have been attributed to it that should be attributed to something else, even like this Win Act payments probably are sort of legal versus the actual loan payment. And then, just there was a question about our organizational dues. Again, primarily, I know that, like we said, we have a little over $16,000 as a member of the Association of California Water Agencies. I don't currently have a list of all the other ones, but we'll definitely provide that to the board when we do.
Well, the biggie there for the rest of the board in March, nearly $32,000 was charged to organizational dues. How could we have 32,000 in organizational dues? So,
Organizational fee, unless it's, Aqua.
It could have been Aqua, it could have been a 2-year catch-up payment, but again, we got to go back and look. My bookkeeper's been sick for the last 3 or 4 days, so we weren't able to get into that account to see what that actual $32,000.
Maybe we can carry that
We'll let
over
you-
to our next meeting then.
We can, well, I'll send you a note, once I find it out.
Okay.
And so, that's kind of what I have at this point, as it relates to these activities reports. I think one of the things that I wanted, and you will see it in my memo on this particular item, because of its challenge to confirm the complete accuracy of these reports. Trying to find the right word to say that we don't know, and obviously we found some of them are not accurate. My recommendation, and as you see in my memo, is that you approve the first 3 items on your consent calendar, and that you accept these reports
As stated.
as they are, and as I've described, and as you've asked questions, because these are what we've got to hand to our auditor for FY '22 to work on. And I think, as you will see later, I really believe there's multiple reasons that we need to get going on the FY '22 audit.
That'll come up again.
Post-haste, but that'll come up on later. But I'm just letting you know why I'm making that recommendation.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Any further questions from General Manager? Any questions from the audience regarding this item? If not, this is the consent agenda, and the recommendation from the General Manager is to approve the 3 items A, B, and C, and to accept the activity reports as presented. Is there a motion?
so I thought you were gonna do it separately. Can we have a further discussion
No.
regarding the activity reports?
Would you like to have a discussion on the activity report?
Yeah, I have a hard time accepting them, so I don't know if there's a better terminology. I'm not going to approve them. How can I accept them when they're so
As
foul?
stated.
They're foul.
I understand that.
So I need something that I can buy into, because how can we even hand this to the auditor when it's bunk? I don't understand that aspect of it. So you guys have to help me understand that then.
Okay, I think part of the problem is coding issues. Items, invoices were put into the wrong line items. We found that in the merchant account and other things.
But how can I accept that? How can I buy in on a vote? You want me to vote to accept
Okay.
to accept this? How can I accept them when they're chock full of errors?
Well,
Is
you're
there a
not-
different terminology?
You're not approving them, that's for sure.
I'm not accepting them either.
The auditor is gonna look at them and correct the problems in there. And then they'll show up in the audit report where they've corrected it.
So is there a better terminology than accept? Because I'm not accepting them. I'm not going to accept something that is
Yeah, I hear what you're talking about.
totally wrong.
Or you could accept them with the condition that they be turned over to the auditor for clarification. That's possible.
Moving forward at face value.
Can't hear you out there until you get up to the podium.
She made a valid comment though.
Face value, she said
Right.
maybe accept.
Moving forward
accept
at
it.
face value.
Moving forward at face value. That's
Or
interesting.
as stated is another way.
But I can't accept them as stated because they're not correct. They're just chock full of
Well, we
errors.
have to move them along somehow.
Well, then you
as
guys
I
make the motion
understand
and
it,
then.
You can dissent,
Mhm.
as is your
Betcha.
right.
You could just abstain, you could abstain.
I'm not gonna abstain.
Okay, well, we do need to, as our general manager Kelly has mentioned, be able to approve them in some fashion to get them to the auditor.
Not approve them, but just
Well,
move them along.
Move them along, yes.
Because, if you don't mind, through the chair, so the alternative is that we could spend a lot of money
Yep.
bringing in somebody to go through all these accounts and rectify them and make them, quote, acceptable, correct, or approvable. And so that's why
Just give me the correct verbiage that we need, that's all I need. I agree, we don't need to hash it, we're not gonna find the answers, I understand that,
Yeah,
but I just have to have something
I understand where you're coming from.
that
I
says.
don't know if there, I just can't come up with something right off the top of my
Let's
head.
ask a couple of simple questions then. Taking a look at the audit, the activity reports for the last 6 months of the prior fiscal year. Do they represent relatively accurately the condition of the district? Or are there material issues such as in where we have listed 451,000 in charge penalties but not collected, so we can't count on some of those funds? Are there other material shortfalls in the activity reports that could change how the year balances out?
I cannot answer that.
Yeah, who can?
I don't think anybody can until you
Well,
actually.
we've got the basic listing of income and expenses, okay? So obviously, we know there's an error in the penalties because they were charged, not collected. So we can't count that as net revenue. Do you, having looked this over, feel fairly confident that the expenses are accurate?
They may
Best
be
you
attributed
can.
to the wrong category.
But they were true
They are
expenses.
expenses, yeah.
There doesn't appear to be any fraud or misrepresentation or anything like that, and it comes out in the audit that way too. But that's the year prior.
Yeah, and so one option could be maybe approving, instead of saying accept, that the board acknowledges that these are reports from our accounting system and that they can be submitted to the auditor.
There you go.
Approval for submission to the.
Or I just came up with, the board agreed to submit the activity reports as presented to the auditors. So we're not voting on, do we have to vote on it?
Yeah.
Can the
Well,
board?
we're gonna vote to
You just
submit
made a
them.
motion.
Okay,
Is that a good motion? Would you make that motion?
well, let's have a discussion about it. We're just agreeing to submit it. Is that going to be good enough for you?
That's okay for me, yeah.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and would you restate the motion?
Sure, so, this is for C, right, or D, this is
D.
just for D.
Just for D, we're
Just
working
for,
on D.
yeah. So Director Beverly moved,
Yeah, move.
agreed to submit the activity reports as presented, so January of 2022 to 6th June of 2022, as presented to the auditors.
And you seconded that.
I seconded that.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I hear no nays. Now, let's go back to items number A, B, and C,
Yep.
which are the consent items that we need to move on. Any other considerations regarding any of those three items?
No. I would move that we approve items A, B, and C of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Lincoln, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, hearing no nays. Okay, very good. Then we'll move on now to old business.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, item 6A This item's been here since October. This is related to the initial message from the Bureau on account reconciliation. Our chief plant operator, we haven't heard anything in the last day or two, has been inquiring with them, and we have still heard nothing related to our inquiries.
That's typical.
Yes. And again, you know, most of our questions are the same ones you have. How come the numbers don't add up? What's this one versus that one? I did include in your packet that we did receive a November 8th letter from the Bureau. The subject is notice of shortage provisions under contract and reclamations M&I water shortage policy. Just more of a heads up for the board to know that the Bureau is still starting to think that the new water year may be like the last water year. Notwithstanding the last 12 days of precipitation and snow, but hopefully we'll change that. But just want the board to know whether this is because of the Bureau.
I'd like to make a point on that. In a previous water year, when the Bureau and the people around here was not up to accepting the idea that we are in a drought, and the water allocation was given to us early, and it was a higher allocation that was subsequently taken away at a later date. I much prefer the Bureau to give us less water in the beginning so that they can give us more water toward the end of the water year. So we may be in a better position this year, hopefully.
Unless the state sticks their nose in and says, no, give them nothing.
Yeah. All right, so anyway,
Hold
so
on, the Director Fikes.
Fickus.
that, yes, sorry.
Put a US on the end of that and you'll be able to
Director
pronounce it. It's okay.
Yes, go ahead. please.
Okay, so on page 2 of that letter that you received from the Bureau of Reclamation, it says that while we remain committed to at least providing water for public health and safety needs with a focus on domestic use, it remains possible that CDP water supplies may be insufficient. Are we going to at least try to get perhaps some public health and safety needs? And I think we have to I think it's something that we have to request.
And don't we need to potentially change some of the wording in that one ordinance in reference to how our wells are designated? I know it was changed from emergency use only.
Yes.
Well, you have no water, that's emergency.
Well, yes, but I'm wondering if we can't build a better business case if we change some of the wording to where the wells are not just standby, but emergency use only. I'd like to build a business case also on us being a disadvantaged district and the cost of running the wells and the cost to the customer versus even McCollum at their high rate or what Bureau of Reclamation is charging us. I'd like to avoid using the wells if all possible because it will benefit the customers greatly.
So on December 2nd, the Department of Water Resources put out an initial SWP allocation of 5%. And granted, that's not very much water, but it says the DWR will also assess requests for additional water. And that's the Department of Water Resources and not Bureau of Reclamation, but for health and safety. And it says you have to request it. So I just want to make sure that we do try to get anything. But that's the other thing that in our director's handbooks, it talks about, that Scott and I with you, is that our wells are no longer designated as emergency. And the board voted to not make them emergency anymore. And here we were under the impression that it's only emergency use, and yet it really isn't. So I'm curious about that designation and what that is.
Would it be benefit to the community by changing that designation?
Yeah.
And what would you change it to?
Emergency use
Just
versus
emergency.
standby, I believe is what it's currently.
Yeah.
Do you think that would then,
I'm
then
hoping
change?
to build that business case.
Well, here's my question, do you think that would change the Bureau's look at how they then allocate the water to us.
Correct.
Right, yeah,
I think so.
that is my hope.
Because we're being told that if you have water, or you have access to other water source, then even regardless of the cost, I mean, which is astronomical to us, I mean, I think we calculated the amount, it's like $600,000 to $800,000 a year it's cost the community and the extra, having to pay for the extra water.
It costs about $381 an acre foot to pump the water out.
No, by the time we add the chemicals in, I believe it's closer to 500 now, isn't it? Maybe even a little more.
So,
Maybe. Well, the
And-
only chemical is
but at least it might give us the safety and health water, even if it's 500 acre feet, it's 500 acre feet at a way cheaper rate.
And if I remember correctly, we did not get any allocation last year
Correct.
because we had the
Because we had the
for the health and safety.
Correct.
And I was hoping by changing the designation, we might be able to at least get that minimum,
Give it a try.
you know.
Okay.
Well,
Please come up and we'd like to hear from you.
while that's happening, these are all the conversations that we are going to have. And we even talked to Jake
This is
of the
something that
Bureau
we went
last
through last year.
Wednesday.
Oh, good, Jake, okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Didn't the county allocate?
What's your name?
Charles Hanson.
Yeah, okay.
Charles. Didn't the county allocate our well permit just for emergency use only in the first place? When we-
In the beginning, we drilled one well. I say we, the district drilled one well. And I can't remember the year it happened, but the well was drilled in the Shasta County right of way down by West Valley High School.
Yes.
And the county said that if we were to have that well, it had to be for emergency only.
Now, can we find that documentation and just provide that to the Bureau to say that we can only use our wells?
But since that time, the district drilled 2 more wells down there. And now, and annexed those wells into the district, and then changed the designation from emergency to
So,
standby. And the county allowed us to do it. See, the county had to be a part of that too.
Okay, then let me ask a further question. I understand that one of the wells is not a very good producer, is that correct? There's a problem with one of the wells, well, 3 was it?
Production numbers are fine, it's the water quality.
Water quality, yeah.
Which is something we should need to be concerned with for our customers. So we could possibly say that that isn't necessarily a well that we would be ever using unless it was an extreme emergency.
I got the other 2.
Then we have 2 instead of 3, possibly. I'm looking to build a business case any way we can.
Understood, and like I said, we have had preliminary conversations, especially with Jake at the Barron's, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Last week at the Worms meeting, just broached the subject like, let's talk and work on this issue and
Yeah.
build a case for us to get an allocation, even if it means a small amount early, maybe more later.
More later. But yeah, that came as a shock to us last year when they just showed us off completely.
Nothing.
I've never seen that before. It just rankles me to have 15,300 acre feet of water in our contract and get 0.
Yeah.
Any further, yes, ma'am, please.
Jackie Longcarter, and this has to do with what I saw this morning on C-SPAN, Doug Malfa. Just so we know that he is fighting for us. He got up in front of Congress today, and he is pretty upset that the Bureau took water away from us. He said they had no right to do that, since it was given to us originally. The other thing he's fighting for is all these dams that have been built were to preserve water, to hold water. He's upset that Shasta is letting so much water out, taking, all these were for ag originally. Every single one of these dams were ag, not recreation, not for fish, not to push back seawater. And he got up there and he was pretty riled today. So just so we know that he is fighting for us at the federal level. And he's pretty upset at the Bureau for doing what they have done to us. You know, he is one of us up here, so, just keep our eyes and ears open and see if anything comes of it. Fingers crossed. But, oh, the other thing he was very upset about is the fact that, they're gonna destroy one of the dams up here.
On the climate.
On the climate,
On
yeah.
climate,
Yeah.
Just one, I thought they were taking out the.
Three dams,
Yeah.
three dams that are gonna be taken down.
There are 3 dams.
Yes, and.
Didn't I hear preliminary approval of the sites reservoir down, you know?
I don't know.
I can tell you about Sites Reservoir.
At Glenn County area.
Yeah.
Sites Reservoir has been approved.
Yeah.
It just needs to go through a process that, to build it.
Yeah.
And that takes the money, and they don't have the money.
Well,
You
like I
might know
said,
about that.
yeah, the Bureau has really overstepped their bounds. And, he's looking into it even more, that they have really, taken away what was given to us, so.
Right.
Thank you,
Good luck.
Jeremy.
Excuse me for being cynical, but I've been dealing with the Bureau for a long time. Anything else on this subject? Then we'll move on to 6B, which is the audit report. And we do have
It's
an
in
audit
there.
report from the auditor.
48 pages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and through the chair, you have a little memo that I provided to you. The board, at its previous meeting, had at least the board report and the letter. You had asked to take this and have potentially the finance committee look at it, and then get the final report and bring this back. As mentioned in the background here, the finance committee doesn't have actually a committee right now. And so, but we did meet with the chair of the finance committee as well as another member of the board, just to go over it, get some of our questions and dealt with. I think that the audit does provide some good recommendations. There's a management section, page 47 and 48. I can't say that all of those items that were implemented are actively being implemented, but I will report more as we implement all of those. Controls, I just think I reported to some of you individually. For example, when I got here, just because of staffing reasons, accounts payable needed to have an updated way of going through things. So now we have a stamp on each bill that comes in, and it gets a signature by the bookkeeper or initial with an identification of its PO and its general ledger account, and I review it and initial it before it gets run, so that for anybody signing checks and all the rest, they can actually see that. That's an example of a controls that we've instituted. I also think there are just some different items identified in the audit that we just are standard. You know, there's as we saw, you know, it shows that we're in reasonably stable and for the organization, which is good. There is some questions, I think, related to both the pension liability and the OPEB liability, and maybe just for the community's sake. And it can get very, very complicated. So the pension liability is related specifically to all members of the district, including all public members working for public agency or part of the California Public Retirement System, or CalPERS. And so it gets funded through contributions both by the employees and the district that match that, and it sends that into CalPERS. And it's based on their actuarial reports that say, you're funding what your retirement will be. Now, the liability side of that is where there is a potential that the amount funded is not enough to pay for a particular retiree. Now, that becomes the obligation of CalPERS, but they identify it as a potential unfunded. So you go a max case scenario, the funding or the contributions are based on, let's say the actuarial says that people are gonna live till they're 75, they make all their contributions. Well, somebody lives till they're 90 or 100, they are still going to get their defined benefit, which is their X amount of dollars per month. And so that is why there's always this pension liability. Now, the OPEB liability is actually different. It is, OPEB stands for the Other Post-Employment Benefits. And it is where a district has made a commitment to a particular benefit. In our case, it's retiree medical. If you qualify, and there's some qualifications, you've got to have been at least 10 years and through 20 years in CalPERS, and at least with the district for 5 years, and retire from the district to be able to access it. So that's another post-employment benefit. There are other post-employment benefits, but most districts don't do that here. But there are potentially others. But that's the OPEB one. So again, the OPEB is the actuarials figure out how long people are going to live once they access this benefit, how much that yearly cost is going to be to that fund and to the district. And again, it also has that liability element to it of what happens if it goes longer than expected, what happens if your rate of return on the investment of your pool is different. So you'll see in, I think the actuarial identifies you have more exposure if you get less return on your, they all base it on 7% return. So if you get 6, then obviously you made less, so there's more pension OPEB liability to the district. And if you get a higher return of your money, then that means there's more money in the fund, so there's a little bit less. So I don't know if that explains it very well, but that's what I know I explained to our directors, and it's just, I wanted to make sure I mentioned it, because they spend a lot of time in this report based on that, and that's usually just taken from different, from the actuarials that are done on that. There was a question when we met related to some benefit payments, and there was a potential for a refund, at least identified within the audit report, and I apologize for not actually having the page number in which it's identified there. Well, I do have it, page 31, up at the top, 111,000. I have sent the question to the auditor. I haven't gotten a full response. I think this is definitely related to kind of what the district needs to know, what is this contribution, why, and where did it go, to whom, type of thing. But it doesn't necessarily change the fact that the audit number is correct. In other words, that is how much money came out of it. So in other words, it's information we need prospectively, but it doesn't necessarily change this particular item. There was also asked a question, I think it's on page 29, related to, again, this is part of OPEB and other things, the benefit provisions. Can they be amended by the board? In short, yes, especially on the OPEB, but you can really only change those programs prospectively for future retirees.
Yeah.
Can I see that in writing?
What's that?
Can I see that in writing?
I've got a copy, I did some research on that.
Okay,
And I do have legal opinions.
okay.
I
Thank you.
printed it out.
I just want to make 100% sure that that's,
Current and prior employees were
Good.
grandfathered in, basically.
Well, again, unfortunately, whether I know some things and maybe not enough to just be dangerous, but
Yeah.
it's actually, in pension and OPEB parlance, they've been vested for that particular, benefit. Now, one of the things, just put it out there, you know, in talking to the union about an updated, MOU, you know, it's fairly complicated to change that program, but, I've asked them to consider that in the upcoming MOU, we actually have language that says we're gonna work on a prospective program and a change. And that one of the things you can do when you institute a change is you can offer that change benefit to your current employees if they wish to, you know, basically select that. In other words, take that vesting versus the other vesting. So there's some different ways to do that. But if you have that actual legal opinion, that'd be great. I've seen it, I've read it, I just don't have it readily available.
That'll help me.
Any further questions regarding this?
Aren't we walking a bit of a fine line? I know our portion says 100% healthcare, meeting the criteria, at least 5 years, when retiring 20 years. But will that, I understand that the way it currently is probably not sustainable for the district long term. That financially it would really put a burden on the district. So, and without harming the current employees, I also don't want to make it difficult for recruiting new employees. So we need to get a feel for where we're going with this so that we can still staff the place properly. We're not overworking people, but by the same token, treat them fairly. So I think that's the line we have to walk there.
I would agree, and that is what I believe we have come up with as it relates to the potential for a new MOU that describes planning. Because that is ultimately, as your manager, the line we have to walk. I will tell you that most counties and districts and cities that have had a retiree medical offering have made changes over the last 5 to 8 years. So we're definitely need to get us in the market.
Very good. Now, just for the community and for the board members to understand, when the retiree reaches age 65, the district is still paying out a fair amount of money. And from my readings, it seemed like the decrease when they went to Medicare was really small, a small percentage.
Based on what I've seen, it's not small, it's significantly less.
Okay.
But we actually had a conference call scheduled with our bookkeeper and CalPERS on this particular subject today, but the bookkeeper is ill, so we just delayed it. But I can give you a better report in the future on that element of things. But that is one of the things is my primary question. And initially what I saw, it's a significant savings to require retirees to go to Medicare costs or supplemental fee, whatever it may be.
Aren't we providing somewhere in the range of $1,500 a month for them though for additional coverage beyond Medicare? I thought it was $1,500 to $2,000 a month for the retired employee, and that seemed excessively high considering the Advantage plans and others that are available out there. I don't want to cheat the employees, but I want to be able to keep this sustainable.
Those are all reasons why we were gonna have a call today, to make sure on that. I've only seen 1 month's worth of reporting of our costs for this.
what really worried me is when you look at page 28, and it talks about the district's proportionate share of the net pension liability. When you were talking about the increases or the decreases, I mean, currently, you know, our liability is 1.7 million. If we have that decrease, it jumps to 2.6 million. That's scary. I don't know how you can control that. That was one of my questions, is how do we get control of that so we don't go on the wrong side? And I don't know that we can, right? If the interest rate, so anyways, that was just scary, that it could possibly, you know, jump $1 million.
Most public entities are starting with this, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and you can see on page 29, one of the reasons why, which is right in the middle of the page there, where it says how many of our inactive health plan members, which is basically our retirees, at least for the FY 21 was 6, and those that were active members is 9. So, not unlike Social Security or anything else, when you get to the point where you have as many receiving benefits as those actively contributing, that is when you really find a challenging financial point. And again, a reason why there's some benefit to the district and the employees to make this a sustainable program. Because, I mean, not to overly simplify it, but this is the reason why Stockton filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
There's OPEB liability, and obviously the scale is completely different. Went something like $650 million to like $1 billion. And so their choice was to pay the costs of OPEB and have nobody working for the city, or to get some sort of relief. And so what they did is that's the only way they were able to get relief. That's what I've read, and that's true of San Bernardino and a few other places. So again, we have a forewarning, and I believe, as the director mentioned, that says that we want to make sure that we make it sustainable, because we want to make sure that we fund and pay for the benefit that we promised to our current and past employees, and make sure that it's sustainable for them through their lifetime.
Right.
Any other questions at this time from
No,
board
but I
members?
want to continue with some of the audit items, since you had asked me
Yes,
specifically to go.
yeah, this
through
would be a good
some.
time to do it, because I
There
want
would be a few other things.
to, at some point, ask the audience if they
Oh,
have any.
well, if they want to have questions right now, that's fine before we move on.
Okay. Anyone from the audience have a question about the audit? Okay.
So on to the last couple of pages where they talked about material weaknesses.
Yep.
Those are pages 47 and 48.
Right.
Kelly's already directed our attention to some of that. I do want to stress that we need to instruct him to look into all of the procedures in the office. It does indicate here that management had said that corrections had been made
On the
to the
one,
internal procedures on the one.
material witness, no.
But I would like to direct him to ensure that all of these are in place and see if there are others, or if we need to make policy changes. You know, he's only been here a month, you know, and he's done a fine job so far. But there's a lot of work left to do, and I really want to make sure that these things are followed through with, so everything is
So you
transparent.
want to ask the general manager to take a look at these issues and
Yes.
bring back a report
Make sure that all of these procedural changes are actually in place.
in place.
That
Okay.
was reported to.
And that's something that Paul can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, through the chair, if you don't mind, when you make a motion to approve this, we'll include that.
Include
That
that,
way this can
yes.
get done and we can move on to the next one, but I can bring back a report to you
Right.
specific to that request.
Okay.
One of the other things is, I need to point out so the board and the community are aware, this audit is 18 months old, based on faulty software and things. The audit company appears to have done due diligence and whatnot, but it's difficult for us to do much with this information being its age. And I would encourage us to instruct our general manager to, as soon as possible, submit the paperwork necessary to begin the next audit. And I'd like to see
It needs to get.
within, I don't know what a reasonable time frame is, that the audit be done in a more timely fashion. That we can get, I mean, we've already completed another fiscal year and we're halfway through the next one and we're just getting this information. It's difficult to make changes when you're so far behind the curve.
Shouldn't we have started the audit already?
Yeah, I would think through the chair would comment that my experience is within 4 to 5 months, you can start
Yeah, I
your
was
audit.
hoping within 120
Yeah,
days.
so I'm very anxious to get started on the 2022 budget and just, wasn't able to put it in the packet because I didn't see it until last week, but we actually got a letter from the state controller, Betty Yee, and the subject is the 21-22 Special Districts Financial Transactions Report. And it basically says that we're supposed to submit our FY22 audit by Q1 of next year.
Yeah.
So there's another reason for the urgency. So if you put that in part of your motion, I will be, once we get whatever the auditor needs for this to button it up,
Okay.
we will be sending them, and we have, I believe I'll have to check, our engagement letter calls for them to do this audit, so I can get them the information and get them started right away. I would just mention, I wasn't aware of this until recently, but, you know, we also have, a reconciliation with Centerville that we need to do, and it's based on the audit.
Yeah.
And here we are, 18 months from this audit, that I'd like to get in front of them so we can reconcile.
Yes. We still need to reconcile the pricing also. Right,
I'm meeting with them next week to start
All
working
right.
on that.
very good.
Okay.
Other things on the audit, if we go back in, we take a look at it, it shows, net operating of a minus $375,000. Okay, so that means that we ran in the hole for that audit year 2021, in the hole. But if we take a look at the activity reports in the June, activity report, June of 2022, we do show, even though it's not as accurate, $3,068,000 in total funds available.
Mhm.
That's the interest and the funds from the various entities, base rates, water sales, Centerville, et cetera, et cetera. With expenses, I believe were $2,300,000 plus, so it's would on the surface look like about a $712,000 net gain, except we know that the penalties collected is not the penalties charged. So
Received.
we would have to pull probably 200.
Receipt.
Your 451 is penalties charged, and it actually shows in there as if it was income. So we would probably have to pull out about 250,000 to be on the conservative side, and reduce that 712 by about that amount. But the good news is it would still appear, even doing that math, that we would be running about $175,000 positive for the end of fiscal 22, just for the board and community's information here. The best I can figure right now is where it is. And take a look at the bank statement growth, the last 6 months of that fiscal year. Was one of the only ways I could figure it out because I knew the activity reports were sketchy. And I still would like to see the statements to see where we're, because I know we've had some challenges with maintenance and other issues. It's gonna be important to understand what our financial position is so we can prioritize and work on O&M projects. And possibly staffing issues. We may have to take another look at pay scales. If you've got fast food restaurants gonna start paying $20 an hour come first of the year, it's gonna be tough to recruit if we're only offering 18. So,
The only comment I had for the community is, you know, we were expecting great things with this audit. Maybe some really pointed things, and their findings is just on 2 pages, and they're just showing the accounts receivables, they didn't get reconciled. And the accounts payable, same thing, they weren't reconciled, so there was a lot of mistakes, and that's very inherent with knowing that, you know, that things got posted in the wrong account. So that was their critical findings, not anything that had to happen in the past from the Riccardi people out of San Francisco. Same thing with their audits. It basically said the same thing, that the district wasn't posting their accounts, and reconciling them. And that was why Scott was saying, you know, what safeguards do we have, was because this is just something that's just been ongoing. But a little bit disappointing that it didn't really, you know, hammer in some issues that we figured was wrong with the district,
but there are other entities looking into it.
yeah. But the good thing is that maybe there weren't as many problems as we thought as far as with the books, as far as just them being out of balance with just it being in the wrong accounts, so. But we'll investigate that a little bit more too.
Any, yes, sir.
It refers to accounting policies. Do we have accounting policies?
In our aged policy manual, yes.
Okay.
That was what I was talking about, the need to update
Right,
policies and procedures.
Where, that's not in our handbook, is it? I didn't see it.
Not accounting policies. Is it rules and regulations? That we have. If it's, if accounting policies are under rules and regulations, perhaps.
Yes, we'll check that, but if it's not, we'll make sure you get that.
Yeah.
And I can think, to your point, Director Lincoln, we seriously need an update to all of the district policies.
Right, I agree.
From safety to accounting, to management, to other things, and so hopefully you and others will volunteer next month to the chair to be on those committees, and we can get on them.
Hang it on with it, we need to do that.
Yeah.
My only other thing is, this was supposed to go to the finance committee. We had a motion, we had a second, and it didn't go to a finance committee. That's not right.
Oh, you mean the audit?
The audit.
Reviewing it.
Yeah.
What happened was.
I know what happened, but it didn't go. So are we gonna keep doing this?
Well, as long as we keep the same board for a while, we don't have to keep doing this. It's been very frustrating, as you know.
Oh, I know,
You've been
but-
sitting out there a long time, you too, Beverly, and you've been watching this circus go on up here. People changing and leaving and coming and going.
But we could have had an emergency meeting to put us in, put us on committees and had the meeting. There's ways of doing it, but we didn't do it. And I don't think it's fair to the people. If we say we're gonna have a finance committee meeting to go over the audit, then we should do it. Not just arbitrarily say, well, we didn't have enough people, so we're not gonna do it.
Well, you wanna make a motion to send this to the finance committee? If you do that, and when we get a finance committee, we'll have one.
We won't really do committee assignments or even chair, vice chair until January of the year. And so it was felt that why make assignments now and then a month later change them?
And who made those decisions?
Actually, I believe Mr. Kelly and I made that
Right.
decision in a conversation.
Without us knowing anything about it, without the people knowing anything about it.
I invited one other director to meet with us.
And
So how do
We
we
met for
resolve
about
this?
2 hours.
so why wasn't, Erwin and I invited? You know,
I think we did it as an ad hoc instead of following the Brown Act, so that it could be done prior to this board meeting, and we could report back the findings.
by two of you that
Correct.
aren't the committee and had no public involvement. Just you two making decisions and going over it.
Not a lot of decisions we went over,
Right.
and the only decisions are the ones that we
I just-
spoke about tonight.
I just don't want it to happen again.
I understand that.
You know, I don't care if we have to postpone it or whatever. I do not want to have it happen again where we say there's gonna be a finance committee, and then for one reason or another, one person or two people say, oh, we're not gonna do it, and we're gonna do it a different way, and not involve the people, so.
Well, that's a good point, Terry. Now, on hearing that and discussing that publicly, does that put this audit in limbo until we do decide to have a finance committee meeting?
Not on my part. I reviewed it, and I don't have a problem with it. It's up to the questions we get from the
I
audience
guess we'll
now.
have to ask the rest of the board. We also, that's a good question. Let's throw it out to the audience, because we have a member here that would like to speak on that, I think.
Yes, I would, like to say something now. I don't understand why, the finance people can't just, appoint somebody from the customers. Because, you have certified public accountants that live here, put one of them on the finance, committee. And they could serve like a non-voting, person, that sits on the finance committee.
Sort of an advisory
Yeah,
position.
you've got certified public accountants. In fact, this all started by, what's her name, Sarah Beer, certified public accountant, that discovered, the actual problem that you've got. And so, but, appoint, someone to help you.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. But by the way, that's why I came up with the idea of the Citizens Advisory Committee that worked on the rate schedule, and I was hoping that we would have those people in place for things like this, but apparently it didn't move further.
So we certainly could hold a special meeting, and instead of just having like the finance, what they voted on, we could have a special meeting, and the only topic would be the audit. We could have it done then by officially next week then, and that should be enough time then to give it to the auditors to finalize, if that's what.
That was one of my concerns, is wrapping this up and getting the information out to get the next
The
audit
the only thing is that there really is not much substance in the audit.
started.
And a lot of it is questionable anyway, yeah.
Well, the audit isn't necessarily questionable, because there's not much in it other than the PEB stuff. And the pensions and that, so
Well, what's the pleasure of the board? If you, just to throw this out, if the board decides to just have a special meeting on the audit, say in a week, what will that do that we haven't done tonight? That's my question on that.
in my opinion, and everybody else, it's not going to do anything else. I've read it 3 times and have hashed it out what the issues are. I think what Terry was trying to say, and he can say it for himself, is that we didn't allow the public.
Yeah, I understand,
Yeah.
that's.
I don't want that to happen anymore, so.
Yeah.
That was one of our big complaints before we got on the board, and that's why I got on the board, so that we're open and honest, and we have these committees, and we use them, so. But I'd still like to hear if anybody else has got something better to say than me, so.
Okay, so.
Well, I could leave it to Director McVeigh to respond, but I think too, clearly we ran into a bind between the last meeting and this meeting by not having, enough members on the finance committee. Thanksgiving, whatever else it may be, you can have special meetings. I think Director Lincoln is absolutely correct. We did direct it to go there, but on the other hand, we've had a public meeting, it's been in the public for them to view. I'll leave it to you as you wish to do. If you want to delay this, we can do that as well.
Okay.
Or we can approve this and direct me as previously mentioned. And also, obviously, making sure that the good news is, by the time the next audit is done, we will have a finance committee. It will go to the finance committee before it goes there, and that will be a public meeting. And the finance committee could specifically request members of the community to review and provide them with input and comment. I mean, I would hope that we could actually get them engaged and provide us with some good comments.
Okay, so
And it's
getting
good,
back.
sorry,
Go
it's
ahead.
gonna be more germane for the FY '22 than this one. Right.
It's gonna be nice to be able to compare them also.
So getting back to this particular item, I hear two proposals. One is to approve it tonight as it sits here, as we've discussed in a public meeting. The second is to then have a special meeting on just the audit in a week's time, at which time it can be approved or not approved. Those are the two ideas that are on the table now.
I don't
Anything else?
feel that a special meeting will accomplish anything more than we have accomplished tonight.
Yeah, I think we went over it very well, you read.
Just one comment. How do you guys feel about that? This audit? Dennis got up and spoke, but how do you feel about us approving it? That's my question to you. Are you okay with what we've done?
Honestly feel, you guys have gone through it well enough. Like you said, there's not a whole lot in it for us ultimately. So I would personally feel comfortable with you guys approving it and moving forward with it. It would just be taking more time to do a special meeting on it and then putting it forward. Plus, without having Director Jones here and being able to redo a finance committee and get the new standings of the committee members, it would kind of be a no kind of thing to do a special meeting with only one director on there. So I would feel fine with it going forward.
Thank you.
Would it make any difference with the grand jury if they were taking information from this last audit to their decision? Would that make a difference?
That would be up to them. They have access to the audit if they wish it.
Okay,
It's a matter of them doing their deliberations and
okay.
whatever.
So they could find more than go beyond what is in the audit?
Possibly.
No.
LAFCO may be doing one also.
Okay.
Who knows?
And LAFCO,
Yeah.
okay. So the decision you make on this tonight to move, just approve it or go ahead with it as you recommended and be done with it and move into the next year? Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Let's get a motion going.
Well, Chair would entertain a motion.
One of you do?
I move to approve the audit or accept the audit.
And I think
And two other
along
items.
with that, there was something that the general manager had mentioned that needed to be done, a clarification along with the approval of the audit.
Yeah, there were two items to be added to the motion.
And I don't have those two items in my.
Those were to direct the
See, you
general
should-
manager.
So you should have made the motion.
Well, I was trying to allow you to be involved. See, if we can amend that motion to include directing the general manager to verify that all proper policies and procedures are being now followed. It did say current status fully implemented, but that's page 48, the very last.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And we're gonna ask him to verify that
That's
is
what was
in effect.
verified
And to
Two,
proceed, go ahead,
audit findings.
and to proceed in a timely fashion with putting together the, right,
22.
okay?
21, 22?
122 audit.
Okay, so Director Beverly moves to approve the audit for 2020-2021, in addition to having the general manager verify that these items that were determined on here for the findings are fully implemented, and to proceed in a timely fashion for the 2021-2022 audit.
Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Yes, sir. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you all. Good discussion. All right.
Well done. Mr.
Now we'll
Chairman,
move on.
item 6C, this is the water use restrictions that you may recall that was brought before the board last month. The board, based on a motion and a vote, suspended the penalties portion of of our resolutions. And it was on a monthly basis, so it's back for you for a month. If any of you wish to make a motion to reinstate the penalties, you can do so at this moment. If not, we will move on.
How do we do?
How do you
That's
feel?
what I wanted to get to. Can we get a report from our treatment supervisor on where we are on the
How much surface water do we have?
79 in October, or something
I
like
think I'm prepared to talk.
that.
Yeah,
Well,
what
our
do you
general,
want?
well, and if he's really not here, we shouldn't be asking.
So, the question is, how much water is left of the McConnell water? And, do we look like we're gonna be able to make it all the way through the fiscal year, or the water year, with the McConnell water? And if we are, then there is no need for the penalties.
So, through the chair and our chief plant operator can update us on this. In your operations report, we have that we used 79 acre feet in November, and we did not use any well water. The district is using water, and so it is quite possible, we have a meeting again in next week to review this, that we will not have enough McConnell water to get us through the end of February, and so we may schedule some well water operations in the coming 65 to 70 days.
Okay, so what
Anything
happened,
you want to add to that, Bill?
You did great.
so what happened from last month when we were told that we were gonna have enough water to this meeting where we're not gonna have enough McConnell water?
It took the penalties away, it didn't rain, people just used the water. We could see the demand go up. And kind of rest.
We should do a comparison year to year also. and see that usage.
I think the question was, are we gonna run out of water? And the answer was no.
I think you stated that we would sell all of the McConnell water by the end of the water year.
That's correct.
Right.
We're gonna run out of it though.
But we have the well.
Got
We
the
have the
wells,
wells.
got the wells.
Okay.
Yeah,
The idea is, and I don't know how you predict it, but the idea here is to use McConnell water all the way up to the end of February, and you don't have to use
as
the
best
well
you
water at
can.
all.
It's,
Well,
keeping
you know,
track of
I
the
mean,
water
that's
here is
almost
not an exact
impossible to
science.
do,
Yeah,
but that's what we'd like to do. But the idea is, we wanna use all the McConnell water, because we gotta pay for it anyway.
Right.
correct.
So, you know, just save the water to the end and then just use a little bit of well water at the end, if you have to.
Well, I'm hoping that it will be a blend.
Yeah.
So that it's not waited till the end and it's only well water.
Yeah, and that would be good,
Yeah.
because that way, you know,
That's
almost.
And I trust them to handle it and do a good job.
By the way, I would like to see another accounting of, how much it costs to pump that well water, including the
Chemicals in that.
chemical, there's only one chemical.
The electrical, well, no, isn't there aren't there two chemicals, a turbidity and a,
No, just
No?
the
just a chlorination?
chlorine,
correct.
just the chlorine, it only costs chlorine and electricity, that's it.
But the
Water's
chlorine is
free.
expensive and the electricity is,
What's that?
you know,
And
cost of
big time.
chlorine is skyrocketed.
Yes, sir.
Charles Hanson, yeah. So, how much of that water usage of the 79 was from the breaks on Coyote?
Good question.
How much, I'm sorry, would you say that again?
How much of the water usage of the 79 acre feet was from the break on Coyote and
Lassen.
Omega, Lassen, and all the breaks in the district? How much quantity can we put into our breaks? And then if we are gonna have to run this well water, are you guys gonna pick up our fines against if people don't use all our surface water? They start notifying the public, they start holding back, at least through our allocations, it's on our bills. And what, you know, what is our bill? So we get 60% of 2019 still, and then the 29 units for the M and I?
No,
No,
75.
it's 75% and 40
And 40.
for him and I.
Okay, 40, now that should be able to get us through this time of year,
Yes,
through
it's,
February. If somebody can't take that, then they should pay the fine this time of year, because their breaks on their property, they're overusing, they're not keeping up with their own service connection. If they're using more than the 40 or the 75%. That's something broke, that's just sending water into their own water table, and they should pay for it.
well, if it's past their meter, they're paying for the water at a minimum.
Do we have any idea how many people actually went over in November?
I do not have that number right now. So what we did was, if somebody did go over and, would have received a penalty, the way the system was supposed to be set up is they would have a penalty identified and it would be 0 based on the board's action. But at least they would be notified if they went over their
I think what the board's done for all the M&I and everyone else out there is enough to get each customer through the end of this year with surface water. If they're going over, they're using way too much water, and you should be penalizing them. Because, you know, there's no crop that needs to be watered this time of year.
And I think what the board's argument last month was that they were afraid they weren't gonna use all of your McConnell water. And if we know now that we are, then the penalty could be.
Put back on again.
Mhm.
Well, that's the discussion.
But with,
Because-
if we take a look at what McConnell water is left and the potential for well production water, since we are in the business of selling water, would we want to greatly restrict, considering the weather right now, any water sales?
We're not really restricting any water sales, you're just paying a penalty.
If you go over a certain amount.
Yeah.
We're just going after the big users that are just blatantly using the water.
That's
But my only
basically it,
concern
right?
would be that one customer who has a break on their property doesn't catch it right away, and then not only do they have to pay for all that water, they're gonna have to pay the penalty on top of it.
Well, but then they they can protest it or appeal.
Yeah, they can
Okay.
protest that. We've, in the past, what we have done is, people have protested, I guess you call it a protest, because they've had a leak on their property. They paid for the water,
Yeah, you have to pay.
they gotta pay for the water, somebody's gotta pay for the water. So they paid for the water, but we have, eliminated the penalty on it.
We did that
And that was
last
on a case
winter.
by case basis.
Okay, I'm reluctant to reimpose penalties in a holiday season, especially with inflation the way it is. We're a disadvantaged district, so I find it difficult to tell people that I'm gonna make them pay a penalty.
But what about the guy that's building this?
Well, could you come up?
What about the guy that's building
You
30,000
know,
gallon
we
swimming
can,
pool?
by the way, before you go too much further, I just wanna mention, we can sit here and do this all night long
Yeah.
and get nowhere. So, why don't we make a specific,
Let's make it specific to you right now.
okay.
What you're saying is outside the realm. There's people this time of year that have been waiting all year long for a contractor to come in and build them a swimming pool. They're gonna put in 35,000 gallons during a drought issue,
Okay,
and they should be fined for doing that.
and
Because it's cheaper paying the fine than to truck in Axter and deliver water to them at 4,000 gallons a load.
By the way, you're not supposed to, the way the
drought ordinance.
drought ordinance is set up.
They shouldn't be doing that, but now they're gonna get away with doing that, violating the drought ordinance, because you're
You have a
literally.
valid point, but I think that the number of potential customers who would be putting in a swimming pool right now would be,
Well, I know 2 or 3 of them are doing it.
okay.
Well,
Is it a concern with 2 or 3? Maybe if it was 20 or 30.
Well, they should be calling Axter and delivering their own water.
so here, thank you very much. Here's the situation. Right now, unless somebody else has something to say, there's 2 questions before this board. Should we eliminate the penalty for another month, or should we keep the penalty on? Those are the 2 situations that we are dealing with. Which one do you wanna go with?
We can pick one and have a vote on it.
Well, somebody make a motion and see if you get a second.
Well, there can only be one motion, because,
Excuse me. Somebody makes a motion. If somebody doesn't second it, it dies.
That's correct.
So make a motion. Somebody make a motion.
I make a motion that we put the penalties back on.
so here's my point that I was trying to get across.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to keep the penalty on. Now,
To reinstate the.
Reinstate it, just real quick.
So-
Currently, we do not have the penalty, it was waived by the board.
Reinstate.
The
yeah.
motion was to reinstate.
right, there's a motion on the floor to reinstate the penalty. Now, Beverly, you had a.
The point was, is what happened last month was that we were doing it by a month, you guys were doing it by a month to month.
Mhm.
So if we don't make a motion, it goes right back on the books. We don't have to make a motion.
You're right.
So that was what I was trying to get across. There's only one motion that would be appropriate, would be that we waive the penalties again this month.
So,
Good
through
point.
the chair, I would respectfully say that the way we interpreted the motion previously was that it was waiving the penalties through the water year, and that you would review it at each successive meeting.
So let's look at the minutes then, that we approved tonight. When did we do it? When did we do it?
Last meeting.
Last meeting, do we have the minutes from last meeting or
Yeah,
just the
they should
minutes
be in
from
there.
meeting before?
Nope, it's there, it's on page 3. Director Trineri moved to suspend the penalties for the next month and to revisit on a month-to-month basis. So it was only suspended for this next month. That's the way I interpret it.
And to revisit it,
And that's what we're doing.
okay, we're revisiting it.
Yeah.
So, I guess now we have to make an interpretation on the minutes.
regardless of that, you have a motion
Yeah, we do have a motion on the floor.
basically
to put the
reinstate the
penalty-
penalties.
To put the penalties on again for this coming month. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Motion carries. 3-1.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's why we have a 5-person
Mhm.
board.
All right. So let's go next to, the next thing on the agenda is the general manager's report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the board and members. You have in your packet a brief review of just some of the different activities. I try to have it in here so that it's in both the packet and everything else. But I just would add on a couple of items. We have made an offer for a new administrative assistant. Also, since this was drafted, we've received a notice from our current account clerk, Jennifer, that she's leaving, so we're recruiting for that position as well. I want to just highlight that we have a district Dropbox updated and installed thanks to Roger in our staff, who was able to build that for us. So I would just wanted to acknowledge that. Also in your background, on your report, I did put in it, so it's again in our packet, in our minutes, the registrar's canvass of the general election, authorizing and calling the election for our members. And then I also put in here that we received a JPIA President's Special Recognition for our activities as it relates to the claims and cases. So basically, we did a good job last year, that little guy right there.
Maybe the rates will go down a little bit now?
At least you get a refund on that. But I do want to mention, because I did attend a couple of days of the Aqua JPIA conference, this is the JPIA actually meeting packet. I mentioned it prior, but they did have a conversation about their cyber defense or coverage program. A lot of our agencies are dealing with cyber attacks. You know, basically the cyber attackers are moving from banks and other things, and you know, going after districts. So one of the things I wanted to mention to the board, I have asked a few IT companies to come and do an initial look and survey of our IT, and to provide some proposals of potential next steps on that. Gotta say, you know, I've been here a month. It's pretty disheartening to come into an office that has a computer that's still running Windows 7 and has a fan on it that's going to make me go deaf. That's why you hear me yelling. And just the mishmash of the different workstations we have here. And the fact that we're bringing in a lot of new people, you know, it'd be nice to have them, you know, have some uniform stuff to work on. I'm going to make a photocopy of one of the other things that they provided in here, and I'm going to send it to the board. They have a glossary of terms. So most of you know, especially when you get to be on a board here, and those of us who have been in the water world for a long time, there's nothing government agencies like more than acronyms, and they are confusing as heck. So there's a few things here, at least on the insurance acronym side of things. I want to just mention too that at the Aqua Conference, I did attend a North Sac Valley Bureau meeting. Thad Bettner was there, and a few of our other colleagues in the North Valley. It was reported, as mentioned before, that the State Water Project was going to do basically 0% ag, 5% M&I as their initial announcement. One of the things, there was a meteorologist that was at one of the panels that said that in the last 100+ years, there's never been 4 straight years of La Nina. There's been 3 a lot of times, and the 4th year is a big year. So hopefully this last month of big snows is an indicator. On the other hand, you know, I sat through other conferences in which we had the state meteorologist mention that the largest and longest drought in California was between 800 and 1200 AD.
Yes.
And you've seen articles about, oh, this could be a 500-year drought, which is kind of funny. There weren't a lot of internal combustion engines running around here 500 years ago. But it was a big drought, long drought in California, so hopefully we're not going into one of those. The other thing too, just kind of an interesting one, because I saw it on one of these things, is that on the Colorado River, and I know it's a long ways away from us, but here's the impact it has, is the State Water Project, Central Valley Water, all the rest, they do supply a lot of water to Southern California. So there's agreements allocating 16 million acre-feet of water to the Colorado River. The inflow on a normal year is 10 to 12 million acre-feet a year.
10 to 12?
Million acre-feet a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can take my shoes off and do the numbers, and that means it's gonna be short down there. We have 27 million acre-feet a year million acre-feet of storage in all of California. And all projections show we need about 20 million acre-feet of storage more in the next 50 years. And just for reference, back to the Sykes Reservoir, it's 1.5 million acre-feet.
Yeah.
So that's a drop in the bucket a little bit.
We can use it.
But we need it.
Yeah.
Absolutely need it. Especially because all the other things that are taking water. So that was one of the disheartening elements. Back to the comments here with the Bureau's report was, you know, they're doing a lot of mumbo jumbo about how they're doing all these studies and what the fisheries needs are going to be and all the other stuff, which sure sounds like they're leading to some of the things that the congressman was worried about they did in the past, but may do in the future.
He also said that all of these dams were put in to waive off a 5-year, they said a 5-year drought. We should have had enough water for 5 years of drought. And again, the Bureau,
Drained it away.
yeah, shut the water.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Doing the math, if we were to receive 5% of our contract, that would be 765 acre-feet. And we know that that's gonna be way short of what we're gonna need.
You know,
If they do it on contract and not historic usage, that would be my
They
concern.
do it on historic usage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 5% is gonna take our historic usage has been what, about 4,200 acre-feet?
Yeah,
So
that's-
5% of that,
high.
now you're down to 200 and some acre-feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there may be a better way to jiggle those numbers.
Yeah.
There is a better way. We've done it before.
And we're gonna
And of course, whatever you come up with, we try to come up on the high side, then we bump it against the Bureau of Reclamation, they come up on the low side, and somewhere along the way, we reach a medium.
Yeah, well,
And it's usually not in our favor anyway.
but if I remember correctly, health and safety, if we had the wells recategorized as emergency, would push us beyond this 765, just on health and safety. And, you know, maybe that's the approach we need to take.
Worth looking at.
it's very worth looking at it, and it's ammunition for our argument on our side.
That's right.
To see if we can get our number higher, and if that means their number is lower than that, we at least have a higher number to try to.
I'd love to push this to closer to 1,200.
Well, thank you, just wanted to give that update, and I know that the board also knows that much of that list in the packet is a subset of what I send you on a kind of weekly basis, but it's really just so the public knows that there's a lot of activities going on
Yeah.
in the GM's office, and with that, we can move to the operation, yes.
Yep. Number 8
Question,
is,
couple of, if I can, a couple of questions for our director.
go right ahead.
I understand you successfully recruited a part-time person to fill in at the treatment plant,
Right.
coming up fairly soon?
Yep.
Okay. This will be just is it part-time, full-time, and temporary? I was just curious.
Part-time, very
Part-time,
part-time. And,
ongoing, or I'm just curious where we are with that.
well, yes, we need, somebody of a T4 qualification. Our current chief plant operator, needs to start using some vacation time, number one. Number two, has, a health event
Right.
that needs to be so they're not working for a while. So we need somebody to be here of that classification qualification. That's the primary purpose. And also get them trained enough so that other part-time opportunities. So I don't think we expect there to be much more than a day or two here or there for this person.
Oh, okay, not a problem.
There may be a week while
Oh,
we have,
absolutely.
then there'll be a couple weeks where they're not working.
And our T3 is still on limited duty. Is there any indication how much longer that runs?
No.
Okay, it's an ongoing fluid situation.
Until the doctor releases.
Yeah.
Right.
To be on more than light duty.
So once we bring in the new administrative assistant and then replace the clerk, will that satisfy the staffing issues of the district?
No, not mentioned verbally, but in the written report, we do have a maintenance worker one that
Okay,
provided their notice and left a week ago, and we're recruiting for that replacement as well.
all right. And will that satisfy the needs of the district for
Yeah.
staffing?
At least on that term, yes.
Okay.
Has the accountant have access now to banking, where I know Kristen was the only one, or maybe she didn't, there was nobody that had access to the bank information, so is Melissa now where she can go in and pay some bills or do something that we had a problem before?
Excellent question, and yes, on both Melissa and I now have that access. We're still working through finalizing Director McVeigh and myself to be check signers, and we'll probably bring to the board for another member of the board to be a check signer.
Yeah.
The banking security hoops and paperwork is it gives you some hope that the banking industry is at least secure. But to get us access to the account has taken about a week and a half.
I'm still on the assigner, and you two are about to be signers.
Great, and I wanted to bring that up and ask, would it be prudent of us to assign another person to be a check signer at this meeting? Because if during regular business hours, we have to have someone from that branch come out here, it'd be nice to have it all done at one time.
Well, I don't think we can do it at this meeting because we don't have it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Well, can't I bring it up underneath my other board member items?
No.
No? I was hoping I could sneak that in.
Okay, well, my apologies, I should have thought of it for this meeting, I didn't. We'll just have to wait till the January meeting.
Put it in the January.
Once, you and I need to be signers as well as
All right.
the chair, and that should get us through, but right now, we do need to get that done in the next.
Yes. Definitely.
All right, I know we're running
All right.
late, my
Shall we
apologies.
move on to operations report?
Yes, so the operations report, under administration, we have usually reported the number of delinquent accounts and the delinquent amount. Our admin assistant left, so I worked with our super volunteer, Sally, to try to get this number, and and so I actually asked another question, which was, can you break those out? And yeah, she could. So, a little bit different this time. There were 257 accounts that are 90-plus days delinquent. So, just so the board knows, those are less than likely to be paid anytime soon. Many of these are really, really out there. There were 316 60 days plus delinquent for 34/7, and then there were 468 accounts at 30 days delinquent, totaling 42,000. That's more likely to be.
So it's common this time of year around the holidays for people to be a little behind.
Right.
But of that, 236 that are 90 days plus? Aren't the majority of those on just the minimal 1081 a month?
Yes,
charge?
yeah.
So they're inactive meters,
Right.
and they've been that way long term.
Yeah.
Didn't we approve writing off a certain number of those? And is this something we want to take a look at and possibly pull the meter if they're not running to get caught up? Freeing up capacity?
We made, number,
I understand.
69 on the list of things that
I
we're getting to.
understand.
But yes, there was some working on many of these accounts that were like $1 or $2, and just, let's get them
Oh,
off
yeah.
so that we can reduce the number of
Absolutely.
ridiculous ones that we shouldn't even be dealing with. Same thing with, there's a number of accounts that are like a negative 85 cents.
Yeah.
Why are they showing up on 4 pages of my page? So we are starting on that. We have a little bit of a staffing thing to get that done.
Is there any report you can give us on, the lockouts and how that's progressed with some of these accounts?
Not, I don't have anything
Okay.
immediately.
It impacts our, budget.
So if you have
What
to,
was that again? The which?
Lockout accounts.
Oh, lockout,
People
yeah,
who
okay.
were actually locked out, came in to pay, made payment arrangements or something.
It did trigger a significant number of payments, but I just don't have
No, I
readily available.
came in the office a few times and it was packed in there.
Yeah.
Scott, you made the comment that out of the 257 accounts, that most of them were paying, it was just on the bare minimum.
Right,
But if you do the math, that can't be true.
okay.
So,
That's kind of what I was asking, is that the case for the majority of those long-term accounts?
yeah, because I just took 257 and times it by the $65, even if we were doing that base, and it came out to like 16,000, and times that by 3, you get 50,000 versus 103,000. So.
Right, but
Well,
some of those accounts that are, just that minimum are long-term, and I have personally seen some that were $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 for the one account.
Yeah,
Right, so that's what makes up a lot.
makes
That
a
makes up the
difference.
majority
Okay.
of that money.
But so, if there's
Okay.
30 or 40 of them that are 9 or 10,000, and then the rest of them are all small, that's.
Yeah.
All right, again, water treatment plant operations, as mentioned before, 79 acre feet. This last month, as you can see, the staff is keeping up the normal activities, filters 3 and 4, been disinfected and back in service. Also clearing up some of the brush and other activities around there. As mentioned before, we did get a T4, he's a retiree that's interested in just having a little part-time job to help out, which is a huge help out.
Yes.
On the distribution, there's just a report here from our distribution manager about the leaks at Oak and Serrano, as well as the Lassen Avenue, Coyote. We did do our chlorine and bacteriological samples. And just mentioning here, the distribution supervisor wanted to say thanks to the customers for being patient. I know there were a few breaks, they had to knock on doors and just say, we'll get it to you. And they were very helpful and gracious. And that's it for that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Operationally, just one, any report on either potential grants or following up on some of the ones that we have been working on? I know there's a $5 million out there. There's also on everybody's bill, a $1 state fund that was supposed to be used for backwash pond and 6,000 linear be a pipe replacement. I was curious if there's any movement on either of these.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I actually had a note under my GM's verbal report that, based on time, I didn't touch on. So first of all, there's a Shasta County ARPA funds allocation to community service and water districts that they've made available. I did confirm about 10 days ago that our number would be about $260,000, and we have put in for an update of as many of our meters as we can possibly update. As the board may be aware, we have a significant number of meters that are still manually read. We also have a significant number of meters that we can read, but we gotta actually get out there with the handheld. And then we have at least a route that we can just drive along and read the meters. And ultimately, my goal is to make the meter reading thing not take a full week with all of our crew. So, we're gonna put in, and I think we can replace the batteries that are, for those that need to be replaced, and actually put the new registers and transmitters on a significant number. My experience in other districts is there's always maybe 10% might be a number of which you're always gonna have a odd meter out in the middle of nowhere, or you're gonna have a big one that's somewhere that you're gonna do manual reads on for a couple hundred meters, but you don't wanna do that. And so there's a couple of methods for this one. You can do what is called automatic meter reading. That's called AMR, if you see the infamous alphabet soup. And then there's AMI, which is AMI stands for automatic meter integration. So that's where your meters actually go to the cloud, and then you would get like real-time stuff and all the rest of that stuff. We don't have enough cell service out here. We're too just large. So if we can get to AMR, which means we can drive by all of our routes except for maybe a few hundred meters and get them read, that would be huge. And this grant could potentially fund 80% of that. We could maybe put it in our budget for next year to finish it out. So we'll know more later. It relates to the backwash and the treatment plant ponds, the 5 million, blah, 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 whatever that may be. So that's a FEMA and state grant monies. We did just get a letter from OES related to an inquiry that PACE, our engineers, had made on our behalf. And that one, we gotta have a follow-up meeting to figure out what they're gonna pay for or not. We wanna do a concrete lining for the treatment ponds up there. It's the most efficient, it's the most effective, and long-term the best. But that's not what FEMA funded, so they're like, well, if you're gonna do that, even if you can get it funded from the state, you're gonna have to do a whole bunch of more environmental review. And so we're gonna have a follow-up to say, well, if you're gonna commit to your 2.4 million, and we're gonna get the rest from these other funding sources that are gonna pay for the project, can't we just proceed? Let's just get going, right? Because that's a big project and we wanna get that done. I think those were the two that I had the most current, any update on.
Okay. Any potential grants out there for infrastructure?
Yes, so there's actually a bureau grant that I've taken a look at, and a state grant that I've taken a look at, but I don't have any more to report as it relates to its applicability to us. I did talk to Tom Warnock at Pace Engineering about a grant that disadvantaged communities would have a higher probability of receiving funds for, so he's hasn't gotten back to me on that one. He kind of knew a little bit about it. I've also looked into, and I just don't have enough information yet to offer it to the community, but there are a couple of utility support type of individual grants to help with people paying their bills. So there's a couple programs the state has that we can put on our website, put into our.
That would be nice to put out so that people who are struggling with some of the.
Especially during this time of year.
Right, the other program was the state drought assistance where people who, because of that, lost their landscaping could apply for, by reducing the lawn size. I think it's $2 a square foot, $1.70 to $2 a square foot, but you can't re-landscape, you have to show the pictures of the dead lawns and whatnot, apply for the funds, and then once you receive them, then you could re-landscape into something that was more drought tolerant. So people who have lost those, and I'd like to get that information out to the community too.
Very good, and I did talk to Shasta Lake City. They've also been looking into this grant. The biggest pushback that they've had is that to re-landscape, it's if you're gonna replace it with turf, which is just, you know, plastic grass, it's $15 a square foot. So they're trying to find how to point people to alternatives that would fit what they're getting money for.
Mulch, gravel, and a few plants with a drip system, that kind of a thing. Potentially changing your approach to landscaping for the long term.
All right,
Thank you, my apologies for mentioning that earlier.
no problem.
On this.
Moving on down to number 9, which is standing committee reports. We have not had any standing committee meetings in the last month, so I would assume that there's nothing to report.
I would like to bring up one thing though, and ask that our general manager have for us at the next board meeting, a date for doing this mid-year budget review.
Supposed to be in
Set a time.
January.
Well, yes, but with staff shortages and whatnot right now, I don't wanna stress them out. I'd like to come up with a time for that, and maybe at the next board meeting, we determine an actual time based on how his progress has been in compiling all the information. Unless he thinks he'd be prepared by, you know, either right about or prior to the next board meeting.
Through the chair, I will take that comment under item number 10, which is board members' items. I think it's more appropriate.
Okay.
Okay,
I wrote it down as number 10.
that's fine.
Because we don't have any committees, and as mentioned here, this would be an agendized item for the January meeting for the appointment of members of the board to these committees.
This committee, exactly. We do have two members of the Planning and Steering Committee here, myself and Mr. McVeigh.
Correct.
And I brought this up last meeting, and I think that we need to start looking at putting together a planning committee meeting, including the community, to talk about what we're gonna do in the future. Talk about what we need to do right now to make this district operate better. It's been all the pipes have been in the ground for 60 years. And then we need to look at what we're gonna do in the future to make this district future district.
Viable long-term.
Viable long-term.
That would be, you're talking basically then like a 5-year, maybe 10-year master
Yeah, I
plan.
think it would be a good idea. We are required to have a 5-year water plan.
The only
And that
issue-
should be part of it.
I see a real need for that, but I'm concerned about the potential expense of bringing in Pace Engineering or something
And doing what?
to be involved in generating some of the master plan. Am I not correct that we would probably involve Pace Engineering and it could run 80,000 or more?
We would, but I think it would be a very good subject for a planning and steering
I
committee to
agree.
discuss
We have
some
to
of
do
the
it.
things we need,
We can't,
and then schedule out how to accomplish that, knowing that some may cost and some may not, so
Right.
I think that's
We
part
are
of the
looking for grants.
conversation. Yeah.
Okay,
we better start looking at the future.
yes.
All right, board member items. And that was what you had talked about. And so now we move on, right?
Well, any board member have items. I
Did
just
you
would
wanna
say
bring
that
up
I
the
put
SRI?
Director McVeigh's comments.
Sphere of influence.
basketball, so we're gonna have Erwin talk about that.
Okay.
But, so I just wanted two items. So at our next meeting, we're going to have the committee members selected, but are we also going to then do a chair and vice chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that normally we do.
okay. And then the second item was, when I was talking to a community member today, he asked, how come the board packets don't retain on the website for longer than the month that they're in? So when January comes, the December packet goes away. I don't, is it just too lengthy, too much stuff to retain on the website? If somebody wanted to go back and, because your packet's got all kinds of stuff, and the minutes, of course, just have, you know, when you look at the minutes. And thank you, the minutes are posted, I noticed that, so all the minutes are on the website now. I just didn't know if it was too much data to be left on the website somewhere.
I will check.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be,
Could be very helpful, but,
Yeah.
but it also should be too large. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's what I was afraid of. So we wanted to hear about LAFCO and at the meeting, that you could share.
Well, the LAFCO now is poised to take a look at Clear Creek Community Services District, because we do have this audit that will go to them, and they will base, along with Paul Kelly, they'll put together a budget for the district that's people anywhere can take a look at and go, you okay, that's a viable district, or it's not a viable district. So we have some numbers that are reasonable to look at. As you know, and I think we've mentioned here before, LAFCO voted to make the MSR, Municipal Service Review, and sphere of influence for Clear Creek Community Services District a priority for this year. This year being the fiscal year, and that's what's happening. So before next July, we should see hopefully a new MSR SOI for Clear Creek Community Services District.
Sphere of influence relates to a district having potential to annex other areas to help the district grow. And that is potentially one way for us to increase revenues in the district. So there are a few areas that are potential for us to expand our sphere of influence a little bit. Mr. Palma-Mesa, you and I had discussed that at one time, and was it an area down by 273 that you thought the city of Reading might be trying to annex or get into their sphere of influence that maybe we should be protecting? I don't remember the exact location.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about that. LAFCO just passed a MSR SOI for the city of Reading. And the city of Reading, in their SOI, sphere of influence, projected that there would be a portion of the property along 273 that extended more from the Wind River area down south toward the Anderson area and across 273, which took in most of the industrial stuff that's there now. It abuts our district. There was talk about that at LAFCO during the meeting, and it was taken out. So they did not, their sphere of influence will not go any further than where they are, than the border of Reading right now.
Now, I understand that
Now-
the city of Anderson had complained, and that's why it was taken out.
No, it was city of Anderson complained about it.
Right.
Yeah, when we took it out.
That's right.
Yeah. And it was a good complaint because it was apparent that the city of Reading was eventually trying to creep a little further.
Yeah, and, they're trying to
Down.
grow, and it makes them more economically
Yeah.
viable.
But I will tell you this, and I've said this before, I'm saying this again, and I'll keep saying it. Some time back, as some of you remember, there was a development called North Fork Ranch. Remember Ranch? 3,000 acres, 3,000 acres. The people who own North Fork Ranch, all that 3,000 acres, they went to the planning commission and put together a map that was gonna be about 1,000 homes, maybe a little more than that, if I recall. Anyway, my memory, I'm bringing this up from memory and not from looking at the records anymore. But it was about 1,000 homes, and their plan allowed for them to dump all that traffic from those houses, 1,000 houses, onto the existing roads of Happy Valley. Happy Valley Road, Linda Road, and everybody was in an uproar about that. Rightfully so. Went to the planning commission and protested it, and the people who owned the property decided that they would go down to 273 and purchase property along 273 that abuts their 3,000 acres. We would serve the water to them down there, and then all of the traffic that was gonna be generated by the subdivision would then go down to 273 on it.
Correct.
Road down there. That would have been the outlet. It would have been good for us because we would have gotten rid of all the traffic, and it would have been good for them because then they could use 273 and put in more commercial development and even apartment houses. That map went through the planning commission. If I'm not correct, if I am correct, the map was approved. We're gonna annex that down there. The district was supposed to annex that down there because we were gonna serve water to them down there. Well, then the economy went south.
Yep.
And everything went to hell in a handbasket, the map expired, and there we are. From what I understand, the people who own the property still own that property down in 273. It's not part of our district, but if that area is going to develop in the future, it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to put that in our district. The other thing about the 3,000 acres is when we owe them water. Whoever's in our district, we owe water to. Can't deny water to people that's in the district. And so one of the things that was gonna happen was that those people, in order to become part of our district, was gonna have to drill 3 wells.
Yep.
Sandy Winters should be here, she should be telling us this. They were supposed to drill 3 wells. We said, we will serve a letter to you. We have to do a will serve letter for water to these people that wanna build. And we said, we'd serve water to you, but you gotta build 3 wells to help service the water in the district.
Mm-hmm.
And they agreed to that. And then the map expired and we are nowhere right now. By the way, just so everybody knows, we did go through a great deal of growth in this area many years ago.
Yep.
One of the things that I've learned being on LAFCO is that when you do a municipal service review, you have to look at the growth potential and what the growth is in an area. Growth in Shasta County has died. It's less than 1% right now. We don't have any growth. We used to get a lot of people that came up here, as you probably know, from LA. Maybe some of you came up from LA, I don't know. Came up from LA or the Bay Area, mostly LA, and that was what generated our growth at that time. They don't come up here anymore. They go to other states now.
Yep.
And so consequently, our growth is almost 0. Less than 1% of the total county. City of Reading doesn't grow very much. They've had people on the city council for many years now that are opposed to growth.
Yes.
They don't want to grow.
They've turned down.
Because it costs money. So, it costs the city money. So anyway, I thought that's a little history of what's going on around here. But that 3,000 acres is still there.
Yeah.
One day.
It's actually, from what I understand, it's an Arizona real estate broker who owns it now and has purchased additional land, and it's up to about 6,000.
Not in our district.
Maybe abutting it.
I don't care where it is, but it's not in our district. Only 3,000 acres in our district. That's it. If they wanna come in to the district with 3,000 more acres, they're gonna have to drill more than more wells.
Depending on how many homes they put on it.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're 10-acre, 20-acre parcels, that changes things.
Anyway,
We've got another board.
Mr. Lincoln.
Yes, safety. Do you have safety meetings?
Yes.
Okay, what I noticed is we have cones. Every place we've done a job, we've got cones still left out. Is there a reason for that? Is it just that they're not being picked up, or? And the other thing is, when they did that project on Olinda Road, they left that open. The hole was left open, and there was no fence or anything put around it. And what brought this to my mind was when we got that award from safety, or from insurance.
Yeah.
You know, watching that, we've gotten, you know, that's just an accident waiting to happen. And the sidewalk isn't fixed. And it's got puddles in there, people trying to walk through there. You could break a leg, you know, anything. And that's why I wondered about safety. And
Well, we do have safety meetings. We have had a brief, but it needs to be followed up conversation on cleaning up after the work that's been done.
okay.
Well, the rain's been
Updated SOPs on
hasn't
it.
it?
They can work in the rain.
Yeah.
No, but after you fix something, it's hard to put the final touches on it when it's all muddy and gooey.
Yeah, but most of those are
That's what
done.
base rock is for.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all I had.
Very good. I got it. Good comment.
And anybody else? Okay, so it is time now for us to go into closed session. We're going to be going into closed session to discuss conference with labor negotiators, government code S54957.6, designated representatives, directors Irwin Fust and Chuck Jones, general manager Paul Kelly, employee organization UPEC 792. Before we go into closed session, I want to open it up to anyone in the audience if you have anything that you might want to say about the labor negotiations. Yes, sir.
So our retired annuitants that do work when they show up, are we still paying into their CalPERS? Do they have insurance? Do they have workers' comp? Are they gonna come in from the district, or are they gonna come in through a consultant? And then
I missed what you were referring, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't understand the
the
question.
retired annuitant that's just gonna fill in for a week or two,
Oh, okay.
is he gonna come in with benefits from the county, you know, who's gonna pay his workers' comp, all that stuff, or he's gonna come in through a consultant group that pays his workers' comp, stuff like that, for that guy? Or is he gonna provide his own benefits?
With retirement, you cannot work more than 9 months.
I got a little bit more, so Tom Warnock, you mentioned him, he has all kinds of students that Shasta College can bring in here, cover their workers' comp, and they could work towards their grade certificates as volunteers almost. Or you can, you know, we could set up base pay for them, whatever, but those guys need to hang their hats for their certificates in a district. And there's quite a bit of a benefit we can get to those guys, because they can walk in here with workers' comp. And they can go through the workforce investment or whatever, welfare, Cal jobs, whatever, and get those benefits, keep those benefits, come in here, not ask for a dime in compensation, and get that certificate. So that's an idea for it.
That is a good idea. It's worth taking a look at as far as how many hours they would have to put in here. being on a short-term basis to get a certification, I wouldn't think the union would complain.
I just have a question, sorry, in regards to the part-time filtration plant guy, being 1 day a week, give or take, or vacation, whatever have you. Would it be a more feasible thing, I'm a state employee, I'm under PERS and the whole blah, blah, blah stuff. Would it be more feasible to put his position as a PI, permanent intermittent, so they work no more than 1,500 hours a year, that 1,500 hours would have to be split in half the first 6 months and the second 6 months to get insurance benefits, but if he's already got benefits coming to him being a retired operator already, then if we're working him less than 1,500 hours a year, we technically wouldn't have to pay towards benefits through PERS. Might save us some money, I'm just saying.
Appreciate the comment. If the chair would wish me to answer any of those, I can do that. First of all, retired annuitants have a significantly less than 1,500 hour requirement. That way, the employer is not responsible for any CalPERS contribution, any benefits contribution. We obviously make sure that we're covered with our insurance for anybody that works for us, but that is handled very easily because they have the correct certifications for the work they do. Definitely, you know, as we move forward and get updated MOU, job classifications, and all the rest, the opportunity to have people gain certificates by working here is something we would definitely be open to.
Okay.
But, you know, on the other hand, you know, smaller districts, that's harder to manage. You know, it's actually a lot of work to manage volunteers in some ways. In some ways, those people oftentimes are better served working for larger cities or other things to get their certification. But, which is possible, definitely something we can do. Again, currently, under our current MOU, we have things like maintenance worker 1, 2, or 3. That doesn't help you to get your certifications necessarily, even though it's required. When you get it to the industry standard of a distribution operator, then bringing somebody in from Tom's class or something would be more helpful. Another benefit to update our MOU. I also want to mention, I know we're going to run into closed session, just real quick. For the public's purposes, we did move this to the last item on the agenda. This is most districts and agencies that I've worked for always do it either first, which means the board would have to get here at 5. Don't want to do that. Or last. We will comply with the Brown Act, which is that we can and potentially report that there's direction given, but there will be no action done out of a closed session. It would have to come back on either a regularly posted, published agenda meeting or a special meeting, both of which would have Brown Act requirements of publication. So there's no need, unless you really want to hear that the report out of direction given, and we'll be back to be here. But we'll make sure we record that in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, we'll go into closed session.